The cat wouldn't let anyone hold the baby. Here's why. What looked like jealousy and aggression turned out to be something no one in the family had expected. A silent, furry guardian acting on an instinct older than language itself. Nobody expected a 7-pound tabby cat to become the most important line of defense in a newborn's first weeks of life, but that is exactly what happened. And by the time the parents finally understood what their cat was trying to tell them, the word overreaction would never cross their minds again. The first time it happened, they thought it was jealousy. A low growl, a flash of claws, a hiss directed at a well-meaning grandmother who had reached down to lift the sleeping infant from her crib. The cat, Luna, a 4-year-old rescue tabby who had never shown a single moment of aggression in her entire life, was suddenly an obstacle, a problem, something that needed to be addressed before she hurt someone. They did not know yet that Luna was the one trying to prevent the hurting. A perfectly ordinary homecoming. Sarah and Marcus had brought their daughter, Lily, home on a Tuesday in late October. The house was warm, the nursery was ready. Luna, who had spent the 9 months of pregnancy sleeping curled against Sarah's growing belly, watched the whole transition with calm amber eyes. The first few days were unremarkable. Luna would approach the baby's crib, sniff the edge, and settle nearby on the floor, close but not intrusive. Sarah found it sweet. Marcus photographed it. They sent the pictures to their families with captions like, "Luna has accepted her new sister," and everyone agreed it was adorable. Then, on the 5th night, something shifted. Luna began sleeping pressed against the side of the crib rather than at a distance. She stopped eating at her usual time. She began following Sarah with a restlessness that felt different from her ordinary affectionate trailing. And whenever anyone other than Sarah or Marcus reached toward Lily, a visiting aunt, a neighbor, the grandmother who had come to help for 2 weeks, Luna inserted herself. She would jump onto the crib rail, arch her back, and emit a sound that nobody in the family had heard from her before. It was not playful, it was not territorial in the way cats guard food or a favorite chair. It was something more urgent, more directed, more like a warning. Then came the night everything made sense. Before you read on, stories like this deserve to be shared. If you've ever felt that an animal was trying to tell you something, share this article with someone who needs to hear it. What comes next changed this family forever. The night that changed everything. It was 2:14 in the morning. Sarah woke not to crying, Lily had been sleeping longer stretches, but to Luna. The cat was on the bed, batting Sarah's face with an insistent, clawless paw. Not hard, not panicked, but continuous, rhythmic, impossible to ignore. Sarah got up. She walked to the nursery. She looked into the crib. Lily was pale, too pale and too still, and breathing in a way that Sarah's body registered before her mind did. Shallow, slightly labored, a tiny chest rising with more effort than it should. She picked up her daughter. She called out to Marcus. Within 40 minutes, they were in the emergency room of the nearest children's hospital. The diagnosis was RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, a common respiratory infection that is unremarkable in older children and adults, but can be genuinely dangerous for newborns whose small airways and immature immune systems make even mild congestion a potential emergency. Lily's oxygen levels had dropped. She needed monitoring, supplemental oxygen, and close observation for the next 24 hours. She recovered fully. She went home 2 days later, pink and loud and magnificently, furiously alive. But in the quiet aftermath of the hospital stay, sitting in a plastic chair beside a bassinet in a pediatric ward, watching monitors and listening to the soft beeps that confirmed her daughter's breathing, Sarah began to rearrange the past 2 weeks in her mind. What Luna already knew. The timeline, once she examined it, was striking. Luna's behavior had changed on the 5th day after Lily came home. RSV typically has an incubation period of 4 to 6 days. The cat had begun her vigil almost exactly at the point when the virus would have started taking hold, before any human in the house had noticed the slightest change in the baby. There is significant scientific literature on the olfactory capabilities of domestic cats. Their sense of smell is estimated to be between 9 and 16 times more sensitive than a human's. They possess a secondary scent organ, the vomeronasal organ, that processes chemical information invisible to human perception: hormones, metabolic byproducts, the subtle chemical signatures that illness leaves in breath, skin, and sweat. What Sarah's family had interpreted as jealousy, as aggression, as a behavioral problem to be managed, was almost certainly something else entirely. Luna had smelled sickness before anyone could see it. She had stationed herself at the source of that smell. She had tried, in the only language available to her, to communicate that something was wrong, blocking access not out of competition or spite, but out of the same protective logic that makes a cat freeze and stare at a corner of the room that looks empty to human eyes, but is not. And when stillness and blocking were not enough, she had gone to the one person she trusted most and done the simplest, most direct thing she could do. She woke her up. The science of what animals sense. Luna's story is remarkable, but it is not unique. Across medical literature and in case reports that have accumulated over decades, there is a persistent thread of evidence that certain animals, cats and dogs most commonly, but also birds and horses, are capable of detecting physiological changes in the humans they live with, long before those changes become visible or measurable by standard clinical means. Dogs have been trained to detect the scent of certain cancers, diabetic episodes, and epileptic seizures with accuracy rates that rival or exceed conventional screening methods. Therapy cats in hospice settings have been observed showing behavioral changes around patients hours before clinical deterioration. Studies in animal cognition consistently point to the same conclusion. The sensory world that animals inhabit is vastly richer in chemical and electromagnetic information than the one humans navigate, and some animals appear to have developed the capacity or the inclination to respond to what they perceive in ways that benefit the humans they are bonded to. The question of why is more complex. Evolutionary biologists debate whether this behavior is genuinely altruistic, whether it is an extension of the social bonding behaviors that domestication has amplified over thousands of years, or whether it is simply the expression of an animal's own anxiety in the presence of unfamiliar stimuli. What is harder to debate is the outcome. Luna did not need to understand RSV. She did not need to know the name of what she was smelling. She needed only to respond to it, and she did, with a consistency and a directedness that ultimately saved her family from a much worse night than the one they had. Cats have been living alongside humans for nearly 10,000 years. In that time, some of them appear to have learned something important, that when the humans they love are in trouble, the right move is to make noise. What the family learned. Patricia, the grandmother who had been hissed at, called Sarah from the waiting room of the hospital while Lily was being assessed. She was crying. Not from guilt exactly, how could she have known, but from something that sits adjacent to guilt, the particular emotion of being wrong in a way that matters. "That cat knew," she said. "That cat knew the whole time." Sarah told her it was okay. She meant it. Marcus, an engineer by training and temperament, spent a few evenings after Lily's homecoming reading about feline olfaction and animal-assisted medical detection. He came away from the research with an appreciation he had not expected, not for the supernatural, not for the mystical, but for the ordinary and extraordinary fact of biological diversity. Other species, evolved along different lines, equipped with different instruments, perceive a different world. That world sometimes contains information that ours does not, and occasionally, in a nursery at 2:14 in the morning, that information is the difference between a frightening night and a catastrophic one. Luna, for her part, returned to her previous self within days of Lily's return from the hospital. The growling stopped, the blocking stopped. She resumed her position as a slightly imperious, deeply affectionate household companion who slept in sunny patches and demanded breakfast at unreasonable hours. She showed no awareness of having done anything notable. She probably hadn't, by her own accounting. She had simply responded to what she perceived. That is what animals do. A different kind of guardian. There is a particular kind of love that does not announce itself, that does not need recognition or understanding or even acknowledgement. It simply acts. It plants itself between a sleeping infant and an uncertain world and says, with a growl or a hiss or a persistent paw on a sleeping face, "Not yet, not now, pay attention." We live with animals, and we call them pets, which is a word that implies smallness, dependence, a relationship in which the benefit flows one way. Luna's story is a useful corrective to that idea. She was not a decoration or a comfort object. She was a member of a household who perceived a threat, communicated it as clearly as she was able, and ultimately delivered a sleeping woman to a crib that needed attending. The word for that, in any language, is not pet. Lily is now 2 years old. She's healthy, loud, and absolutely convinced that Luna belongs to her. She feeds her treats with the solemn, self-important generosity of someone distributing a great gift. Luna tolerates this with the patience of a very old soul who has already done the most important thing she will ever be asked to do and is now, finally, resting. Sarah keeps a photograph on her phone, taken on the night they came home from the hospital, of Luna asleep in the nursery, pressed against the base of the crib. She shows it to people sometimes. She doesn't always tell the full story. Sometimes she just lets them look at the cat, curled small and ordinary and completely at peace, and says she knew.